Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Natalie. I want to talk to you a little today about a lesson that I learned. And it was a lesson that I truly wish I had learned many, many years ago. But fortunately, I've learned it now. And it goes with the theme that Mickey got it wrong. So when I look at things from baby boomers to Gen Xers to whatever you may be out there, we have been taught and told through marketing guys like me how great Disney World is and Disneyland. It's the great place to be. As a journalist, I completely bought into it. And even as a father, I had my kids buy into it on our trips down to Florida or to California. All that remained true for me until I met students, teachers, families, and lots of wonderful people at a fantastic place, a school for children with special needs. So when I ask you to briefly look at these pictures, I contend that with every ounce of my being, that where there is a child with special needs, that truly is the happiest place on earth. Look at these photos. Smiles all around. Sure, these kids and these families have challenges. Who among us does not have challenges? Their challenges may be different than ours, but it does not take away the possibility of happiness. So I ask you to look at them and really know that they all are very happy kids. Globally, there are some great myths in our society, and they've been kind of culled down into 7 myths. The first one is that you can always tell when a child or youth has special needs. When I hear this myth, basically I look at it as an ignorant assumption. We don't know the situation. Instead, we label people. Number 2 is that people in wheelchairs are always confined to wheelchairs. They'll never get out. Well, not true. As I walk around the halls of the school where I work, I see children in physical therapy, occupational therapy, music therapy. They're moving. They get them out of the wheelchairs, gait walkers. And you know what? There's always a smile on their face. Another myth is that those with special needs are 100% dependent on others. Well, first of all, I'm not sure that there's anybody in this room that doesn't need help every now and then. Once again, it's a different kind of help. But schools, families, friends, they provide support. And my question to you is, are you ready to provide support? Can you do it? Can you do it willingly? Another great myth is that a disability defines who you are as an individual. It totally boggles my mind that this concept still exists in society today. Is Stevie Wonder a great musician, or is he a great blind musician? Labels. We're all guilty of putting labels on people, and as a society, we need to change. When you see a person or child or youth with special needs, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for the parents, and it's embarrassing for the observer. Ultimately, what I look at is that ignorance is bred by a lack of education, a lack of knowledge. No matter the situation, I think that I can be pretty confident in saying that a parent is never truly embarrassed by their child. Observers, on the other hand, well, that's where we get into this whole situation of labels. A wonderful story is that there is a family that I work with whose daughter has a very rare disease, and it creates some behaviors that are a little bit out of the ordinary. And when people see them, you should see the looks on their faces. And the parents came up with a great idea. Info cards. When they see someone gawking, staring at their child because of a disability or a special need, they give them a card. And the card has information about the disease, and then it has a website where they can go and learn more and maybe even donate to help change that disease. The special needs myth is that a child who has special needs is mentally disabled, or using society's term, handicapped. Again, it's ignorance and a lack of education. You all know what happens when we assume, so we can't assume. But be curious, seek knowledge, seek understanding. The last great myth in society is that these children will never reach their full potential. I truly get personally offended by this one. It's upsetting because every single day, and I truly mean this because it's something that I've learned and seen, every single day I see milestones that are made that many people thought would be completely impossible with kids. So we've got to ask ourselves, if these people never ever get to their full potential, what do you think Stephen Hawking did? What about John Hockenberry? For those of you who don't know him, John is a journalist. He's in a wheelchair, and he works for ABC News and PBS. Or how about Bethany Hamilton? She's a surfer. She had one arm taken off by a shark, and yet she continues to be a professional surfer. So I talk about my personal milestones, my observations, and things that I love to see. A nonverbal student, he's nervous, he can't speak, he uses an eye gaze system that works with his iPad. He asks a young girl to a prom. A nonverbal girl who has a very rare disease goes to New York City with her mom and dad. She doesn't really speak because she can't, but she also, through her speech therapy, isn't very successful with the types of communication through the eye gaze and her iPad. They're in the Museum of Natural Science. They're in the Egyptian exhibit, and she says, "Mummy." The family was flabbergasted. When they left the museum on the busy streets in New York City, she asked people, or said to people, "Excuse me." It was truly amazing. A student confined to a wheelchair gets up, and with the assistance of a physical therapist and a gait walker, they walk down the aisle at graduation, a milestone that was once thought never to happen. One of the toughest ones for me, anybody who knows me knows that I live and die for the Boston Red Sox. Well, there is a student who lives and dies for the New York Yankees. He's nonverbal, but again, through his eye gaze system and his iPad, he worked with his speech therapist. And after about a month's time, he came in my office, he pointed at the picture on my wall of Fenway Park, and he basically dissed my Red Sox. It's the first and the only time that I will ever be happy that somebody dissed my Red Sox. There is an entire county in New York State, Dutchess County. Their theme is Think Differently. Imagine this. Imagine if this can happen in Rochester. All the parks, amusement parks, regular parks with trees and flowers, the baseball stadium, the hockey arena, everything is completely accessible to everybody. How about if there was a contract with Monroe County that says, if you are a musician and an artist and you are going to book a concert in our city, the first 15 minutes of your concert has to be 100% directed to kids and families where the kids have sensory issues. They go acoustic. There's no lights, there's no fireworks, there's none of the big show. Kids are getting to see concerts because this entire county thinks differently than anywhere else. You know, when we look at the worldview, there are 1 billion people with disabilities. 2 in 10 are kids. 80% live in developing countries. Kids with special needs are less likely to start school. And studies prove if you work with the youngest learners that you can, in fact, excel regardless of the situation. There's a lack of understanding in our society, in our world, about needs. There's a lack of trained teachers, lack of classroom support. Do you know we live in a state, New York State has one of the highest rates of teachers, a teacher shortage in special needs teaching. We need to change that. Speech therapy. There are colleges all around the country that are dropping their speech therapy programs because it's too expensive. If you want to be a speech therapist today, once you find the college, ultimately you can write your own ticket. But we have a lack of trained teachers, a lack of classroom support, and a lack of clinicians. We need to make sure that we're not denying the rights of education. For if we do, it impacts the life of a special needs child, it impacts the life of their family, and whether or not we ever want to accept it, believe it, it totally, completely impacts the life that we lead. It's really time for us to make some changes. So what I've said to many people, you can't not see it. So what can we do about it? Okay? Well, a quote from the World Health Organization: education is one of the most effective ways to break the cycle of discrimination, poverty that children with disabilities face on a global scale. We need to educate the kids, but we also need to educate society. So, what could I do to erase these myths? Well, number one, let's make sure that children enjoy their rights without discrimination based on disability or special need. Apply this principle to our schools, to our recreational programs, to our public access programs, to government platforms, and let's do it every single day. What's your action plan? Because you need to have one. So I'm here today to challenge you to visit a school with special needs. Go visit residences where special needs children live. Bring your friends, enlist them to come with you. Ask questions. Ask the why, the how. Advocate. Get involved and advocate for these kids and these families. Volunteer. You can go to these schools and work your time and volunteer to help these kids and the families and the faculty. If you happen to have some means, donate. But ultimately, especially to you high school students out there, make it a career. It's truly going to be one that is rewarding. But ultimately, I'm here to ask you, to challenge you, do not be a spectator. Be a participant. Observe, think, and act. If we do that, we can all make the world the happiest place that it can be. Thank you very much.